بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone in his time zone. On behalf of the speakers, we would like seriously to say thank you and appreciate putting efforts and time to attend our webinar. We got speakers where they would like to share their experience and their best practices, not in a commercial goal, but very much into make sure, and this is the aim we had with the speakers, that they got a name that everyone to go with takeaways adding value to his business environment. Going further, yes, it is invest with confidence. How much the investment is important and how much more the confidence is much important before doing the investment. Today, we're talking about the region, one of the region we operating in, the United Arab Emirates region, the region where it has lots of potential, and always potentials come with risk. There is no potential, there is no investment without risk. And this is what we will try today to have this session together to understand how can in real life invest with confidence. Next. Going further, and before getting to the topic, we understand there are some 90 respected delegates registered to this webinar. So first thing, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Ayman Al-Wadi, Group Executive Chairman of AW Holding. A story started from Dubai to Abu Dhabi, to Saudi, to Oman, to Qatar, to Egypt, over 27 years. A story on last 14 years, we went to connect the dots between the regions where we are in, the Middle East, the GCC, the MENA region, and all the other continents in our domain. And as such, solutions we created, we believe it is in the line of how investors can invest with confidence. Next. Speakers. Today, we tried our maximum level best to bring best speakers. We believe they can add value and contribute well. They got experience and they are expert in a particular part of the domain in the way how to invest in confidence. Next, please. We would start, and I'm from the school not introducing a person, and I believe the way as the person introducing himself. But what I know about Arbaz, he is a consultant explaining to the client what is the solutions and more and beyond before onboarding a deal or a client. Arbaz, take the pleasure, welcome the attendancy, welcome the audience, and explain yourself and your contribution to this platform today. Please.
Assalamu alaikum. First, I would like to welcome the audience to have joined this webinar. And I am a business development manager with a demonstrated history of working in the financial service industry. And I'm specialized for advising my clients for commercial collection, on two different platforms, which is amicable as well as legal. That's it from my side.
Thank you, Arbaz. The other speaker, Mr. Multazim, a person I know long time. We created tools together, solutions together, and we overcome a lot. So what the audience, they need to know about Multazim today. Multazim, floor is yours, please.
Thank you, Mr. Ayman. First of all, I'd like to welcome everyone and thank you for attending as well. My name is Multazim Kalam Goran and I'm the Regional Collections Manager. I've been with AW Holding for almost 5 years now. In my role as a collection manager, I basically oversee the collection team in UAE, in different regions, UAE, KSA, Oman, and recently in Qatar as well. And I closely coordinate with most of our clients and partners in terms of ensuring that the maximum recovery or the maximum best possible result comes out of the portfolio that they interest us with. And in today's webinar, I'll be sharing some best practices when it comes to debt collection. And I definitely hope that this adds a lot of value to your business. Thank you.
Thank you, my dear Multazim. I'm very much excited and eager to see what contribution you're going to add to this platform. Going further, consultancy part, collection part, not enough. And always there is a need to know more and more and more. With more business, more complex, you need to know the legal rights. Today, Mus'ab, he is like a colleague. And again, we created a lot of out-of-the-box solution. Mus'ab, join me welcoming the audience and explain what the audience need to know about Mus'ab.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Ayman, first of all. And my name is Mus'ab Abdullah, and I'm the group head of legal, responsible for the legal LDS. LDS is our product for legal debt settlement, and also responsible for the internal legal affairs of our group and all over all our marketplace. I want to welcome the audience to our webinar, and I'm thrilled to have you all here today with us. I'm looking forward to sharing insights and engaging in a mindful discussion with you guys.
No doubt, Mus'ab and all the others will sing together to explain further and more. And I would like to say, it is my pleasure. I'm going to moderate the session today with brilliant speakers and a great audience. And I would like to put like a little disclaimer. The session is recorded, and end of the session, we will allow and open the door for question and answers, which will be our pleasure to attend. So what we should expect today to go through, what are the takeaways about investing confidence? So we will start up that Dubai, United Arab Emirates, a potential hub, not only potential hub, it is a gateway to direct and indirect business transaction. And going further, how we can, or the investor can start a business in the United Arab Emirates. Going further, a business means risk. More business, more complex, more risk. So today we will try our maximum level best to highlight whatever potential risk, not to avoid, but at least to identify and manage and mitigate. Going further, after you do the business, you need to understand you market and sell your service or product after you put the right setup in place and the right risk tools, mitigation, but always you will, what we experiencing, that collection is an issue. So you meant an each day payment due dates to collect, as example, like 100,000 US dollar, but you end up collecting 30, 40,000. So how data and collecting B2B debts in way of investing confidence. And of course, all of it within the legal framework. And this is the pillars and what the experience, we will go together with the speakers. Next, please. So let us start the journey and take off how to do business in United Arab Emirates in confidence. Yes, please. Next. Arbaz, you
Hi,
did
good afternoon.
introduce yourself. You did introduce
Yes.
yourself. Now it is the time to have the direct dialogue with the audience. And remember, I'm presenting and I'm the voice of the audience. So I will put some question in between or end of it. So today, Arbaz, I'm putting some 2 hours from my valuable daytime. What you will explain to me and my audience today. Floor is yours, please.
Okay, welcome again to everyone. And as for your question, Mr. Ayman, to share some insight insight about doing business with companies in UAE. Certainly, doing business in the UAE is a highly rewarding factor for everyone. But yes, you need to understand the local customs, regulations, and business practices. Do it correctly. So as you can see on the screen, we have jotted down certain pointers. Understanding the cultural norms. See, UAE is an altogether a different market when you compare it with a market in US or the EU region. So you need to understand the traditions of the region. You need to understand how you can go ahead and build up relationships, building rapport with the companies that you want to deal with. The communication style has to be very polite and a bit of understanding, because the processes that go through in the businesses in UAE are not that fast enough. I mean, there is a smooth transition from one table to another. That is how it works in UAE, as per my experience. Now, going ahead, the legal and regulatory environment. When I talk about the legal and regulatory environment, I would say there are different business structures available through the UAE government, where you can open up companies in free zones, LLCs, and also you can have a partnership with the local sponsor. So these are the 3 type of setups that is being provided, and each of them have their own advantages. And of course, there is the additional advantage for free zone companies, where you have 100% foreign ownership, tax exemptions, and a lot of other benefits as well. Going ahead, when we talk about the economic environment, definitely UAE is a very diversifying economy. It is beyond oil and gas, because the government is supporting sectors like tourism, real estate, finance, technology. Every aspect of the industry has been supported by the government and the businesses that are already good players in the market. Apart from this, you can always have a high standard of living and strong consumer base in UAE. Considering it being a global city, that is what it brings to your table when you try to do business in UAE. Now, coming to the other pointer, which is negotiation and decision making. So yes, definitely, like all business environments and companies and organizations, UAE also follows the hierarchy from the decision maker's point of view. And negotiations can be a bit lengthy and requires a bit of patience when you are having back and forth discussions with your clients. But yes, overall, it can be a great experience for you. Coming to the next pointer, which is the language. Arabic is the official language, but English is also being supported and widely spoken in businesses. And the next pointer would be networking and events. So I would say this is a global city, which is giving you an ample amount of exposure to trade shows, local business events. A lot of conference and exhibitions happen all over the year, and you can engage with a lot of customers, try to pitch in your businesses, and also engage in activities that they provide you. Go to the next slide.
Indeed, I would like here just to be a voice of the audience, and actually to say that to what extent the culture and invest on confidence need to be considered, especially when we're talking about some 204 nationalities. This is something I believe need to be just like understood further.
See, I would say it is in sync with the standard business policies across the globe. Okay, and there is an availability of a DIFC code, for example, which also adheres to laws from the European Union. So again, there's a lot of room. And when you talk about people from 200 different businesses from 204 countries, I would say Dubai is a destination where you can find people from all nationalities and doing business in and out. There is a lot of cross-border transaction also happening on a regular basis. So I would say it is a hub where you can explore your business activities and reach out to the maximum audience, because it is a transition. Considering the geographical location, it is a transition city from Asia to Europe and even to the emerging market of the Africa.
Indeed, thank you very much. Let's carry on, and what more you.
Okay, so doing business in UAE certainly offers a lot of opportunities, but again, you need to be on your toes when it comes to the financial aspect of it. So we have a certain recommendations before you start doing business in UAE. Definitely, you'll have to do the credit checks on your potential clients before to access their financial assets and stability, and you should have clear concept, comprehensive, and include terms for late payment and penalties. This is what is recommended by lawyers, by debt management companies, that you should have clear contracts before engaging with any business activity with your clients, and regular follow-up. So yes, so you need to have a regular follow-up with your clients when it comes to, see, it's a market where it's a volatile market in the end. So you'll have to do your own regular follow-ups with your clients when it comes to your billing and invoicing part of it. Go to the next slide. Okay, so I have just spoken about spoken about the potential that UAE provides to businesses, and I've also alarmed you regarding the cost effective, the credit risk in the market. Okay, but now I'll just highlight a solution that can be offered, that is readily available in the market when it comes to UAE. So you can always engage a debt management partner, just like AW International. We have expertise in local laws and can handle the process efficiently when it comes to your cash flow, when it comes to your risk on your credit. You can, and the best thing about us, companies like us, is we work on a no collection, no fees basis, which is again a policy which is being derived from the European Union, which was previously only an option in the European Union. But being a one-stop solution for debt management, we are also providing this as a solution. No collection, no fees for our amicable platform. Now, the next thing that we should always consider is the legal solution to your credit risk. Definitely, considering the legal cost will be very important when you are moving for a legal case against one of your defaulter. But a debt management company at our level will always help you to analyze and understand what will be the costing, what will be the time frame, what is the scope of work, even before recommending you for a legal option. So that is where we bring something to your table that can be really helpful. And we go to the next one. So that's it from my side. I would like to thank again, and I hope this has added, my explanation has added some value to your understanding. Thank you.
Indeed, Abbas, but let us just like, as I said today, is not only a webinar, not only, it is not a lecture. So we need to have that chit chat. So we understand you're talking about like a healthy environment in all aspects, from the safety to the business and commercial side of the story. I said that such city or a country got 200, more than, in fact, 204 nationalities. We did explain that the culture, how much the culture would play a vital role in terms of finding a deal or mitigating or investing in an investment arena. Um, you mentioned that you need to have a partner in debt collection. It is quite obvious, but there is a question only, a common question. Why not to, as a corporate today, not to have my own debt collection team, to have a full control on them, as an example? This is one of the very, very much like common questions. So what do you think? Why, as a corporate, not to have my own debt collection team? And I need a partner, whoever, regardless the partner, because there are many local and international suppliers in this domain. Yes, sir, Baz, please.
Again, you need to understand who has an expertise at the local level, who has an influence in the market. Debt collection industry completely works on what kind of influence your partner has in the market. And when I talk about us, we have been in this line of business for more than 26 years. So yes, we have the expertise, and we have been providing a one-stop solution for all your requirement when it comes to debt management. We don't work like an agency or a law firm. We are a solution provider. I hope that answers your question.
Okay. It is. So the experience or the experts, they can add further value instead of just getting to building a debt collection team, considering the direct and indirect costs, and so on and so forth. Fine. So to conclude with Arbaz, so it is a healthy market. There is much new regulations, updating these regulations, and there is business, there is a challenge to get to the market, to invest in a confidence. You need to know that who are partners in success need to be with you. You cannot be the lawyer and the debt collection and the marketeer. You need actually to use the experts, and this is may just mitigate whatever risk and avoid surprises mid of the investment journey. Going further, thank you, Arbaz, and we would like to understand now from our Multism. So Multism, we are investors and we invested, and always there is a question about how to collect back. So what takeaways today you will give to my audience in terms of the debt collection in real life, since you are very much in the ground, hands-on, different type of circumstances. Dubai, sometimes you have the debtor in Dubai, sometimes they have the deal and they leave the country, sometimes they disappear, sometimes there is a genuine dispute, sometimes ingenuine dispute. So what your experience takeaways for us today?
Thank you, Mr. Ayman. Yes, to answer your question, firstly, debt collection in UAE can be quite complex. So it is very important that we understand what are the potential risks, and so that it's easy for us to take the necessary steps to mitigate these risks. So we have actually jotted down few of the areas that we need to consider, especially when it comes to risks. And firstly, we will discuss the areas that we should focus on. Then we will see how or what steps we can take in terms of mitigating these risks. First is legal compliance. UAE as a country has a lot of restrictions when it comes to debt collection, especially in terms of communication, I would say. Harassment is not allowed, for example, abusive languages are not allowed. There are also restrictions like residential visits are not allowed in UAE. So it is very important that the collector or the agency that is approaching these debtors for debt collection, they comply with these regulations. Because actually non-compliance with these regulations can lead to heavy fine and reputational damage. Not only reputational damages for the agency, also for the client. So this is one of the major risks that is involved. Then debtor cooperation. The next is debtor cooperation, because as usual, debtors in the UAE, they might not readily pay. They might come up with a lot of excuses, a lot of reason for non-payment, be it cash flow issues, outright rejection. In field, we come across so many situations wherein they don't even acknowledge the debt. The first response is we do not have this debt. Then we often come across situations where the companies have shut down and they restart a new business under a different license. So basically they pretend as if they do not, this debt does not belong to them. So it is very important for the collectors who approach these debtors to use different strategies to try and recover amicably from these customers. Next is data privacy. Same as I said earlier, in UAE, there are a lot of data protection laws in place. So it is very important to handle the customer information securely and ethically. Especially you're not allowed to, without consent, you're not allowed to share this data with a third party, put the data in a public domain. So all these are being restricted by the country. So the collection agency or the collector handling these files should make sure that we comply with these regulations. One more point that comes to my mind is court cases. Yes, court cases in UAE can be at times quite lengthy and expensive. So it is very important to do a proper cost benefit analysis beforehand you go to legal. There are certain cases where legal is imperative. In such situations, yes, after doing a proper analysis, cost benefit analysis, as well as proper legal review, then you go ahead for legal. Next. Now we will see what are the steps that we can take to mitigate these risks that we already discussed. The first point is, as I mentioned earlier, legal compliance. There are a lot of legal restrictions in place. So as a step to mitigate this, the top priority is to appoint a reputable debt collection agency in UAE that is familiar in legal aspects of the country and all the regulations in the country, because especially with the know-how of the UAE market, such an experienced or reputable debt collection agency will be able to comply to all the regulations and work ethically and within the law frame of the country. The next is clear documentation. This is an area which has a lot of importance when it comes to debt collection, especially in situations where debtors, as I mentioned earlier, debtors did not acknowledge the debt, or they come up with different reasons. To have proper documentation in place, or do a proper case study and understand the payment history, communication history is very important, because this helps the collectors while approaching the debtors to adopt different strategies. Same like how we mentioned in situations where you see the companies have shut down and they have started a new company under a different trade license. A proper documentation and understanding of the case helps us to, for example, if you review the case KYC documents among the documentation list, you can know that who is the owner of the company. Then try to approach the owner, see if the companies are under the same ownership. So the collectors have to use different strategies and try to approach the debtor each case by case in a different way. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the thing with court cases, yes, pre-litigation, which is debt collection, is really important. So before you go to court, it is important to actually explore all the amicable solutions and try different options like negotiation, repayment plan, bringing the company owner into the picture, taking the personal undertaking from the owner. So beforehand you go to the court, have a proper understanding of the case, which also helps at a later stage. Once you move to the legal phase, it also helps because you will know what are the assets that's in place. You will also have an understanding about the company's financial situation. Yes, so amicable, exploring all the amicable options is really important. Then when it comes to data security, yes, there is a lot of data privacy laws in place in the country. So the collection agency must have robust data protection measures in place, proper quality control in place to ensure that these data are treated securely and ethically and is not being misused. I hope that answers your question, Mr. Ayman.
A lot of other questions I prefer just to keep it to the end. It is the most interesting part to understand and to take more from your experience, but carry on and let me put it all together at once end of it.
Definitely. Now coming to the next topic, which is how is data important in collection? Data is one of the most important aspect of collection because it actually helps in improving the overall efficiency of collection. How does it play a major role in collection? Yes, to start with, data analysis. Analyzing the data or the documentation in place is actually very important because it gives you or it helps you to fully evaluate the risk involved in the receivables. You'll be able to know if it is a high risk debt or a low risk debt. Also, you get to understand whether, if, for example, if you review the payment history and communication history, you can always understand if there is a chance of this being defaulted and take quick action. Because one of the things that we have always noticed is sometimes when the payments are being missed or then the customers default the payments, usually our clients takes time to take the action or bring in a third-party agency or whether to go legal. This can have a major implication and can lead to a huge loss because what happens is sometimes we notice it takes almost 5 years for someone to take an action on the case. They would rather follow up and the payment doesn't happen. So in such cases, what happens is by the time you take an action or you bring in a third party in picture, the company might have already shut down and they might have absconded, then which results in a complete loss. So data analysis or looking into the data, looking or consistently monitoring the payment history, communication history is very important because it keeps you on top of it and helps you to make the right decisions. It is also important actually for the collectors to have a proper case study. This is the first step in collection. When you are being entrusted a file, it is very important to fully understand the file. So the first step that always the collector or the first action that they take is review the documents, understand the communication, what has happened in the case, is there any genuine dispute in place, is the reason for default and non-payment, financial difficulty. So based on that, the collectors can customize their approach once they start approaching these debtors, because each cases might be different. There might be genuine cases where they are having a financial difficulty. So you have to come up with different options, like offering different payment plans, negotiating, bringing them into the picture, bringing the owner into the picture. So case study is really important, wherein the data plays a huge role. You have to fully review the document, understand the documents. So it can eventually lead to high success rate. Then same as everyone knows, skip tracing is a huge part of collection because you come across a lot of cases where there is no direct contact with the customers. Especially as I mentioned earlier, there are situations where the companies is my audio audible?
Yeah, yes, you are audible, Multazim, but I think Mr. Ayman, he has a problem.
Mr. Ayman, yes. So especially
you can carry on.
Yeah. So especially you come across a lot of situations wherein the companies have shut down. So it is, and you don't have a direct contact. So it is very important for you to review the documents properly and study the documents, because you will get a lot of information. Especially for collection agencies, there are customized tools which they use to skip trace. So the more information that you put in these tools, the more information that you get back. So we always request our clients, for example, when we are being entrusted files, we always request our clients to provide the maximum possible documents, because that can add a lot of value to the file. Even when we approach the debtors, it gives a strong proof and documentation when rightly we start negotiating and discussing with them for the payment. Then coming to data compliance and regulatory compliance, as I mentioned earlier, yes, UAE has a lot of data regulations in place. So the collection agency must ensure that these data are treated ethically and securely without being misused, not put in a public domain, because in pre-legal stage, you're not allowed to put these informations public. You have to directly communicate with the customer and only share these informations with the right party. So all these regulations have to be strictly followed when you are actually working with data. So I actually hope that answers the question. I think unfortunately, Mr. Ayman, there's some technical issues. So I would now pass it on to Musab, who is our group head of legal, because collection and legal actually always goes hand in hand. So Musab would be able to brief you some about the best practices in legal.
Thank you very much, dear. I think Mr. Ayman is back. I don't know. Oh, okay.
I am back.
Welcome back.
Looks to me
Yes, Mr.
that
Rahman.
the topics you talk about, it is a bit hot to an extent the internet couldn't tolerate. So before, like, bombard you with a few questions where audience might be interested.
Yes.
Thank you. It is very much insightful. But let me ask few things to have a better understanding. In a country where majority of it is expat, and we do respect the decision of the debtor to leave sometime. And with this fact, when they leave and they haven't paid their dues and debts, and just name it, as we were talking about with their badge, like a 204 nationalities. So majority of the population. So what and how I can invest with confidence with such risk, please, and how to mitigate it, how to manage
yes,
it.
Mr. Rahman. This question actually has a lot of importance, Mr. Ayman, especially because we come across a lot of scenarios in the UAE wherein the companies have shut down and the owners have absconded. Especially expats, because usually the 50% of ownership lies with the expats and they might have moved out of the country. So in such situation, as I mentioned earlier, it is very important to have a debt collection agency with widespread coverage across the globe. Because then and there, what happens is you will be in a position to approach these debtors in their home country. So even if they have shut down here and they have moved to a different country or back to their home country, these agencies that have coverage in these countries can directly approach them in their countries, which brings them into the picture. And then we have actually had a lot of cases. I myself have handled a lot of cases wherein the customers have shut down their shops and traveled. Then we involve our partners or our offices in different country and we approach them and they finally come and settle it. So it's very important to have coverage in this region.
Indeed, the business has no borders, and always there is a risk side when you do invest. And if I understand this well, we're talking about that even if he disappeared, and according to the financial protocol, so to what extent and what success rate can happen with the investor when, worst case scenario, the debtor left the country? So what is like to manage the risk, to identify the risk? What is the success rate can happen when a debtor leave the country where he got that credit from?
Yes, Mr. Ayman. In terms of success rate, I would say it's not quite high as compared to if the company is currently active and the person is in place in the country. But yes, there are chances if you can actually use use your reach to reach them. I mean, your through your partnership or your law firms in those respective countries. So I would say on an average it would be up 20 to 25%. Yes, there is a good chance that you can reach them and negotiate in their country and get this recovered.
Recently, we had some off-record discussion that debtor go home country, then they go to the other countries allowing the second citizenship, and for past 2 years, you start finding the same debtor, left Oman, left UAE, go back home, then the other second home country allows second citizenship. I heard recently you start finding them previously last year in Qatar and nowadays in Saudi Arabia. Would you just give us a taste? What is the story behind?
Yes, so recently, as you mentioned, that we have come across a lot of situations wherein the customers have closed down their businesses in the countries, especially when it's UAE, Qatar, Oman, and they travel back to their home countries. So what we basically try to do is we involve our partners or our offices in these countries. If it is GCC, we do it through our offices, and we do our due diligence. We have certain portals or government portals through we can check if they have they're currently established a different different business in this country. And thus we try to, sometimes what happens is the customer must have absconded from UAE and moved back to their country, and they set up a business there. So by checking the commercial license registry in their country, we get to understand if they have started a business there, and then we get to approach that company. So in such ways, we have actually settled few cases recently, and we have managed to successfully recover from these files.
What most trending recent default? Like, what is the most trending? Like leaving the country, raising valid dispute, raising invalid dispute, asking for a payment plan, asking for a waiver. What's the most recent trending in this domain?
Yes, Mr. Ryman. The most recent trend, since I would say almost 2 years, you come across is cash flow issues. So every time you approach a company, the first reason for default they come up with is cash flow issues. We do not have the finances to fully settle it. So it is very important actually as a collector to use your strategies there, because if a company is the first thing is for you to understand is what is the reason for non-payment, what is the reason for default, and if you feel like if it is a genuine case, if it is if they're really struggling financially, there is no point in fully demanding them to settle the amount completely. Then you use your strategies as a collector and bring in different solutions. You put forward different solutions wherein you offer them a payment plan, a monthly payment plan, if it is also considerable to the client, and accordingly try to settle it. So there and then the negotiation and discussion plays a huge part. You have to negotiate to bring them to a payment plan, then try to get a settlement letter agreed, try to bring the owner into the picture, try to get a personal undertaking from the owner, and also try to get documentations, like try to get checks for this payment plan. The reason is it also helps later when if they do not stick to their commitment at a later stage. If you decide to go legal, you have strong documentation in place. You will have an agreement letter, you will have a check copies in place, you will have debt acknowledgement from the debtor. So that will definitely help in case if they decide to not pay and we have to move it to a legal phase.
Awesome. So
I hope that answered your questions.
No, it did. But if I'm rephrasing it, you are not only collecting, you are trying to obtain more collaterals. You said balance confirmation, you said payment plan, settlement agreement, checks. To what extent you manage as an average out of your portfolio to get extra collaterals? And is it a behavior we should expect from the debtor, that he would listen to you and give you further balance confirmation or a check or signing a legal document?
Yes, this is a very important point, Mr. Ayman. Usually this is something which we give very high priority to, because once you start engaging in communication with the debtor, even if it has not come to a phase where they are ready to release the payment, throughout the negotiation, we try to obtain all this information, all these additional collaterals like debt confirmation and email confirmation of the debt. We try to bring in a settlement letter into the picture. The main reason is this is keeping in mind that because these are defaulters, eventually they might not stick to their commitment, or they might not pay as promised. In such situations, at a later stage, to withhold the rights of the clients and also for clients to consider legal, these documents are very important. So as an amicable debt settlement team, this is something which we really give a lot of importance to make sure that throughout the negotiation or throughout the discussion, we try to obtain maximum collaterals or documentation from the debtor which supports the claim. So I would say once a case is contacted, just to answer your question, once the case is contacted and once there is positive discussion, we would 60 to 70% we try to get all this information. There are cases wherein they are reluctant to provide because their legal knowledge is also good. They do not want to provide these documents or these collaterals. But in most of the cases, we try to obtain it.
So it became a mediation, it's became a consultation, getting closer to the debtor. And here I would like to ask on behalf of my audience, out of your experience, what is the main important documents? Before we giving the credit, we should ensure that we do have where it's going to make things easier. So is it location? Is it like what type of KYC? What information in the KYC would make a successful collection to invest with confidence?
Yes. So one of the things that I would like to share is most of the times that we see that the clients fail to get these documents from their customers is personal undertaking from the owner. Because usually one common situation that we have noticed, or one common trend in UAE, as I mentioned earlier, is there are a lot of situations where the companies are closed and they reopen a different company under a different license. So legally, to make the owner entitled to play, it is very important to have this personal undertaking from the owner within the KYC document, at least to put a clause, which Musab at a later stage will be able to add a lot of value to that. At least to put a clause in the agreement stating that the owner is personally liable in case if they default or they do not pay. So this is one of the document in the KYC documentation, which is really important. In addition to that, yes, check copies that can add a lot of values. Then the other basic documents like purchase orders, email communication, debt acknowledgement is very important, because we come across a lot of situations wherein we approach the debtors and they outrightly rejects the claim, and the main reason is everything is verbal. So all the communication that the clients or all the creditors might have had with these debtors are all verbal. So it is very important to have written communication or written confirmation of the debt as well.
Awesome. You mentioned the other day about like sometimes the skip tracing, it is taking efforts and extra mile tools teams created. So in the KYC part and the way to trace in case of default, if there is any particular advice to the audience today?
Yes. So as I mentioned earlier, skip tracing is one of the most important aspect of collection, because especially in cases where there is no right party contact or the companies have closed down. And so in such situation, the maximum documentation always helps. So we have our own customer agencies usually have their own customized tools wherein they can put the information, or they can put the informations that you can obtain from the documents, and you can get more information. You can get a lot of information back. So in such situation, the maximum documentation available always help. Yes, sometimes minimal documents work if you have a right party contact, if you are in discussion with the customers. But in cases where there is no contact and where there is a lot of skip tracing involved, the documents like purchase order, email communication, other documents like invoices, delivery notes, bill of landing, all these documents plays a huge part. Because there are, just to give you one example, Mr. Ryman, there are some situations wherein we get interested files and we approach the debtors, and during the initial case study, we do not have a direct contact. Then we request for additional documents from the client, and when the client share these documents, through the information that we can obtain from these documents, we somehow, through our tracing tools, we get to obtain more contact information. Thus, we have managed to contact these customers, and then finally the file gets settled. So yes, documentation plays a major part in skip tracing.
Thank you, Multazim. So documentation, before giving the credit to invest with confidence, it is very much important, and it is vary from transaction to transaction and industry to industry. So we advise usually the credit managers to look and to understand existed and upcoming need at the time of the dispute in terms of documentation. So this is a very much important part. Last Multazim, we've got an appreciated more than 90 delegates attending us today from different regions, and even from some other professional in our domain, they collect for others, and some of them for B2B and B2C. Investors ask about what is the difference between B2C collection and B2B and B2G to government. Again, we will not take much time if you can elaborate that, because we need just to carry on. But your topic is a bit hot, and I can understand how much delegates need to understand and deep dive on that. So what is the difference as you are as a collector between B2B, B2C, B2G? Please.
Yes. So I would say the difference between all three is in your approach on these cases. For example, if it is a B2B case, you have a company in place, you get to approach their finance or you get to approach the owner. So it is an establishment that is in place. So it becomes, it is quite challenging, but the discussion or the negotiation that you might have with these customers is quite different from a B2C case. When it comes to B2C, what happens is these are individual liabilities, personal liabilities. It might be a bank loan or any financial services that the customer might have had. So it is also very important in such cases to understand actually the financial situation of the person, because usually one of the things that we usually notice is especially the B2C debt happens because of job loss or situations like that. So it is very important for you to understand the current financial situation of the person and accordingly formulate your payment plan or your discussion based on that. And when it comes to B2G, as you mentioned, the government, the party that you approach plays a huge role. Whom are you approaching? You have to make sure that you're approaching the right party so that you can engage in the discussion and settle. Yes, recently we have received a few cases wherein the government entities are in default, and we have managed to successfully recover it by approaching the right party. It is also important that you visit these customers, especially when it comes to B2B and B2C, means B2G. You visit these customers, have a direct meeting with them to try and settle it out. When it comes to B2C, that visiting part has some regulations in UAE because you're not allowed to do residential visits. So that is a limitation when it comes to B2C. I hope that answered your question, Mr. Ahmed.
Look at the thing, it is a hot topic, interesting topic, very much in high demand to understand how to invest in confidence when it will come to this particular credit risk. We cannot just like allow more time. I believe we may take it in another webinar just to take deep dive and very much details where it may add much value to the credit manager decision. Thank you very much, Multazim. Any closing remarks to the audience?
That's all. Thank you all for attending. I hope I have added some value through my to the information that I've shared to your business, and that's all. Thank you. Now, as I said earlier, legal and debt always goes hand in hand. So next, Musawwir. Thank you, Mr. Ayman.
Thank you. So if this is the case, there is always a goal to do the amicable. And amicable, it has a certain tools to measure to what extent we can take promises, 30 days, more broken promises, 60 days. But there is a time where you need to practice your legal rights. And as such, today we got a speaker. We work together in many different complicated and non-complicated, different parties, different regions. And we end up that collection is not enough and legal should be absolutely considered. Mr. Mus'ab, what today my audience, they will take away with them? Floor is yours, my dear.
Thank you, Mr. Ayman. Thank you, my colleagues, Arbaz and Multazim, for the productive information. And thank you for the audience. They are with us today in this room. I introduced myself, but again, for the one who joined later, my name is Mus'ab Abdullah, Group Head of Legal, responsible for the Group Legal Debt Settlement. Today, we will speak about the essential legal procedures to follow when collecting the B2B debts in the UAE markets. I will start with divided to two stages or two sides. First is a pre-litigation, which pre-litigation might include the initial contact, so the lawyer collectors or the collector often initiate contact with the debtor through phone calls, emails, or sending letters of demanding the payment. Then they will engage in a formal negotiation with the debtors. So the debtors and the lawyer collector might engage in formal negotiation to settle the debt before going to the legal proceeding. If it's not success, so we move to the formal demand letter. If the negotiation failed, of course, a formal legal notice might be sent. And we have two types of legal notices, even through a law firm and or otherwise through the court, through the notary public. Both are having as a last attempt to settle the dispute before going to the court. In the legal notices, usually we outline the debt details and the consequences of non-payment. If we didn't reach to any settlement, so we move to the second side of whether it's a litigation or arbitration. The legal proceeding usually in UAE, if the debts remain unpaid, the creditors might file case in court or in arbitration according to the dispute resolution clause in the contract or in the agreement between the creditors and the debtor. The UAE usually follow the commercial matters are generally governed by the civil law, not only UAE, but also for all GCC countries such as KSA, Qatar, Oman, Bahrain. After filing the lawsuit and starting the legal proceeding, whether is it a payment order, check execution, or a normal commercial litigation or arbitration, we end up getting a court judgment or an arbitration award. In court judgment or an arbitration award, if the court rules in favor of the creditor, the court usually issues a judgment specifying the payment terms of the debt and any additional legal interest and compensation to the creditor. If this judgment became final and we don't have to go with the appeal, or if the debtor did not appeal or object in the judgment or the arbitration award, then we'll proceed with the enforcement. Enforcement, the creditors can enforce the judgment through various means, such as asset seizures or arrest warrant or bank account freezing, trade lacing, freezing, stopping all the activities of the company. That is includes many enforcement procedure in the execution court. Recently, Dubai court won the UAE Innovative Awards in the most innovative digital transformation category for IFSAH platform. That's recently. IFSAH is a digital system that allows judge to seize the fund from the debtor or individual with judgment against them. This can be done with a simple press of button, whether the funds are in government, semi-government entities, or stock bonds or trade lacing, eliminating the need to file a request and wait for response. This is saving a lot of time in the execution procedure. These innovations, of course, streamline the procedures, making the payment process more efficient and faster. And that is the most important part. As for us, it's different from any other law firm because enforcement is the most important part after going through first instance court and second the appeal court or the court of cassation. End of the day, the creditor he wants to end up getting his payment, not to end up with a couple of papers to frame it on the wall. So recovery of the outstanding amount to the creditor, this is the most important part. That's it. We can move to the next slide, please. Key difference from the Europe and UAE market, or we can say the Middle East market, is the legal system. UAE and Middle East operate under a civil law system, so it's called the civil law jurisdiction, whereas many European countries follow a common law system and they call it the common law jurisdiction. Second, we can speak about the culture factors. Culture norms and practice may influence debt collection proceeding in the UAE, such as importance of maintaining a relationship and reputation within the community. That is a very important part in the UAE to be considered, because many cases we have settled before even going to court and during the litigation with the relationships. Language, of course, language, legal proceeding in UAE and on all Middle East regions, official language, of course, is Arabic. However, we have in UAE English courts like the IFC, ADGM courts that work according to the English law, and official language is English. And even we have recently some developments from Notary Public in Abu Dhabi and in Dubai. They are accepting some documents to be in English. Before it should be in Arabic, or it should be officially legal translated to Arabic. So that is one key difference. However, in Europe, course, the proceedings are typically conducted in the national language according of the respective country. Enforcement method may vary in effectiveness and speed between the UAE and the Europe due to the difference in the legal framework and the administrative procedures. Bankruptcy law and the procedures differ between the UAE and the Europe, affecting how the debtors can discharge or doing the financial restructure for their debts. In UAE, we have a bankruptcy, and it's up to date, up to the recent international standard. Last amendment for the bankruptcy law even was started by last month. And we have also the insolvency law that implemented for the individual as well. That's it. Mr. Ayman?
Yes, thank you, Mus'ab. We cannot say that's it. We would like just to break the protocol bit and the timeline. So let me just put it recently and this morning, some international name operate in our region, and he said, you guys, your laws is not in favor of the investment. So they took the criminal act from the check. So I said, I believe there is a misunderstanding. But the thing is, this is a very much common question from investors, because they are not understanding more about its positive and its negative. Would you just, in a minute, highlight its positive and negative, please? And take
Sure. When it comes to the new regulation for the check bounce, of course, the UAE government have issued recently, or not recently, it's 2 years now, we're working according to this law, the new regulation for the check bounce. It has two sides. First, with the bank side, now if this check, if the amount in the bank have no funds to cover the check amount, the bank shall release whatever amount in the bank account of the beneficiary and give it to beneficiary, of course, and the remaining they will write in the back side of the check what are the balance. The balance, yes, it is not now a criminal if the check bounced for insufficient funds or for closing account. Closing account still a criminal, but for insufficient funds, it is not a criminal. We try also to follow the international standard, because checks are not criminal in Europe since long time. So it's similar here, similar scenario. So now a check, you can file the execution immediately to the execution court. No need to go to first instance court, and then there is a room to appeal and go to cassation. If you have a check bounce for any reason, you can immediately go to the execution court, file execution, and within 1 week, after completing the notification, the debtor has to pay the check amount, or otherwise there will be a travel ban against the check signatory, and we will start the enforcement procedure according to each Emirates jurisdiction.
What is the time frame for such? So let me ask you, Mus'ab, this
Yes.
particular update in the law, is it in favor of
Yes, that is my
invest
second
with confidence
my
and
second
collection
answer.
and legal collection?
100%, Mr. Ayman. Before, what they used to do when the check was criminal, they used to go to the police station, follow up the procedure, and waiting 6 months, 1 year in the police station. Then it moved to the public prosecution. Then it goes to court. End of the day, the criminal might pay fine and go out, or might go to jail for 1 month or 2 months, and then he will get out. There is no any recovery procedures from the criminal side. However, I see it's more positive to make a new regulation to enforce the check immediately and without spending litigation cost, lawyer cost, time, of course, because you have to go to all court stages according to the relationship between the creditor and the debtor. Then you end up with 1 year or 1.5 years in the litigation, and then file the enforcement. Now, with the new regulation, you save all this time, and within 2-3 months, you recover your outstanding in full.
Okay, fine. So shorten the process. What about the cost, Mr. Mus'ab?
Cost, as I mentioned, Mr. Ayman, you already saved the cost of the case registration in the first instance court, which is 6% of the claim amount with a maximum of 40,000. You save the cost if you need to go to appeal. So again, 3%.
So if I compare the previous cost and the existed new laws update cost, is it like comes in a better calculation to the investor?
Of course. Now registering the execution.
So you said if I understand this well, so saving time and saving cost. Fine, good.
Yes.
To what
Now
extent
you have to pay
running
only
out of the time? But to what extent? Yes. So still we need to touch base a few important elements. So bankruptcy and insolvency, to what extent this would help, in fact, to invest with confidence to collect at the time of the dispute? Or this has more positive or negative towards invest in confidence and collection?
See, Mr. Ayman, if we have a debt and in the court and we couldn't collect it for more than 90 days or 60 days, as I remember, the creditor has the right to file for a bankruptcy against the debtor if the amount is more than 100,000. So after filing the bankruptcy and open the procedures, whether they come and settle with you in order to close a bankruptcy case, or otherwise you proceed with appointing a trustee from the court to check all the company accounts, the payable in the market, how much is the total debt.
So the Mus'ab, the commercial side of the story, it has now this, in the first look at it, the bankruptcy and insolvency as an investor, I look at it, it is a bit negative, but now you're telling us it has more positive to invest in confidence, if I understand you well.
course, it has bankruptcy laws. It's implemented positively in both the creditor and the debtor as well. Because if the debtor is misleading the company and just dealing with the assets with no care, and he doesn't care about paying his debt. Now with bankruptcy law, the creditors can file the case against him to check what is the in and out of his account over the past 5 years, to check where is the assets, if there is a cheating, if there is a fraud from the staff, if there is anything. So there is a criminal liability on the company management if there is a misleading or mishandling of the company assets. That's something in favor of the creditor, and in favor of the debtor. If the debtor is really facing difficulties in the market and they couldn't pay their dues, there is a big chance for a financial restructuring from the court to hold their payable for a time period, according to the court, to decide from 3 to 5 to 7 years, according to the trustee report, and to the financial restructuring. So financial restructuring is one solution for debtors who are facing difficulties with the creditors, and they cannot operate anymore because of their debt.
Fine. Thank you very much. We don't need to go out of the scheduled time. I believe there is much inside we can at a later stage take in a particular separate webinar. Thank you very much, Mus'ab. Anything you would like to say to our great audience today?
Thank you everyone. Thank you for the audience, and I wish the session was productive and enjoyable. Thank you.
Thank you, Mus'ab. What we believe over the 27 years, collection, it is not enough standalone solution, neither the legal, neither the cross-border solutions. And today we would like to share our experience, how we kept developing and upgrading the understanding of the credit risk and building a supply chain starting from receivable management. So the corporate or the investor will just focus on his business innovation, and from the date of the invoice, you need to hire an expert to run it from A to Z and to collect it or to raise its risk and its actions immediately, with a second driver in the supply chain of how to advise the business advisory, what collectible, what not collectible, how we can measure it is domestic or a cross-border collection or legal or amicable. This is an important element to the investor to manage his expectation and his cash flow and his risk. Going further with the debt collection, to do the debt settlement in ethic and in principles, and actually to obtain more collaterals, and to not go hard, but just to collect and to strengthen the circumstances of the case. Going further with the fourth driver, when it is a high risk and still there is a chance and law allowed to collect it through its challenge, it is a combination of the business advisory to the risk management to the legal best framework. Going further, borders not for business, so business transfer and exchange and trades goes fast every single second, and as such you need to understand how to collect globally, as such, like in 100 or 150 countries, to accept more risk and to expand more, and in the same time taking all these drivers learnings to enhance your credit position and applications and decision on that credit, and to enhance as well all the new legal updates to your loan application and a credit application. This is about what we meant to try to participate and to contribute to our audience today in terms of how to invest in confidence. And I would like to put a last important remark. Debtor, he is not a criminal unless he is. And debtor needs a help from experts. Debtor is in first place a creditor who didn't collect his dues and he became a debtor. So we do respect the creditor get in default. We do help and understand there is always a way within the logic and realistic within acceptable margin of risk of whatever settlement. Next, please. Here we go. We would reappreciate and keep appreciating your valuable time today. Kindly feel free to put your question in the chat where the controller of the webinar will put it here and drive it to the concerned stakeholders. And if in case we went out of the scheduled time, feel free to approach Arbaz for whatever upcoming inquiries or doubts need to be cleared off. 1 hour is not enough to understand how an all type of a credit risk in a way to invest with confidence. Floor is open for questions. Controller, please raise if there is any questions we got so far.
Yes, Mr. Ayman, we are having questions. First, for Mr. Nishara asks, what is you can use tracing step to find uncountable local party as B2G come a lot of regularities and standard compliance? This is the first question.
Let us take it one by one. So if I understand the question, it is about tracing, which is like a part, you give a credit, you keep waiting, then the credit gets in default by the time you start negotiating. So there is a difficulty to trace. Multazim, would you just simplify it in 1, 2, 3 for us today, please? Especially
Yes,
within the regulations and the code of conduct and the ethic and what it helped the collection, please.
Yes, tracing actually, as I mentioned earlier, my voice is audible, right? Yeah, tracing
Yes,
actually.
it is.
Yes, as I mentioned earlier, skip tracing plays a huge part in collection, because especially when it comes to cases, as Mr. Ryman mentioned, when the companies have shut down and you don't have the right, what happens is you may have many contact details in your record, but it comes to a point where none of these are active. So in such situation, skip tracing plays a huge role. So basically, the collection agencies or the debt collection agency will have their own customized tools through which they can retrieve a lot of information by putting the information that you already have. As I mentioned earlier, if you have some contact details and you can try to obtain more contact details from the tools that we already possess, which will enable you to get more contact information and accordingly approach these debtors. We also have a lot of customized portals through which we get to understand if the trade license is active, who is the registered manager, if they have reopened another business, and all this information. This can vary in different countries under the different regulations. For example, when it comes to Oman, commercial registry license is very important, because sometimes you get to know that the company is closed down, but from the commercial license you get to understand who are the partners and if they have reopened another entity, if they have renamed their company. There are often situations that we come across when the companies might not have changed the license, they just rename it. So the license is the same and they rename it. In such situation, they are legally fully entitled to pay. So yes, skip tracing plays a huge role, and
what about the field visit? What about the field visit? To what extent this would add value?
Yes, field visit it's one of the most important thing, because every time a case is interested, one of the first thing that you have to do is directly visit the company. Because when you directly visit the company, you get to understand if the company is active. If it is active, a direct meeting always helps rather than calling and sending emails. A direct meeting with the finance manager.
Would you stop sharing the screen, Maya?
Yes, I stopped sharing
Yeah,
the
would you stop?
PowerPoint. Okay.
No, there is another document appear. Fine.
Yes, this is for
So
the session.
Multazim, fine. So the questions, it's okay, fine. So Multazim, there is like tools you created to trace internal, external, cross-border the debtors.
Yes. There are customized tools with the information that's already, because we have a huge database, because we have been directly interacting with the customers within UAE, other GCC countries, and we have a huge database. So we have all this consolidated in one place, along with the other informations we obtain from different portals. We have customized it into tools through which we can get the information. So for example, if I want to skip trace a company, I can basically put in the name of the company or the email domain or the owner's details and get more information. I would also
Fine.
like to
It is an art. Yes.
Sorry, Mr. Rahman, I would
Carry
also
on.
like to add a small point when it comes to field visit that you earlier mentioned. Field visit is really important because recently we came across a case wherein they are in default for over 2 years, but citing financial reasons. But what we maintained is we continuously visited the office. But once all of a sudden when we visited their office, one day what we noticed was the complete situation of the company has changed. They have invested more money and they have completely revamped the company. Then we were the first people to go there because they have a lot of debt in the market, and we got to know that the company is now in a different situation, and we almost settled 5 different claims against this company in one go. So it is very important to continuously visit and regularly and frequently visit the company to understand if the company financial situation has also changed. Sorry, I took more time, but thank you. Thanks.
Thank you, Multazim. Mayar, let us take another few questions.
Okay. The second question for Miss Amira. She asks, what about those companies whose owners are located abroad? How to tackle them? We had a debtor whose owner was settled abroad in the UK, and even after all the vendors' fatal results as employees were helplessly complaining about pending salaries and owner didn't have budget.
Fine. I believe I'm going to just ask Multazim and Mus'ab to put some comments on this question from whatever past experience they got.
Yes, this is one area that we actually covered earlier, because when customers have the owners have left the country, or they've shut shop and moved to their own home country, it is very important to have reach in those countries, because usually what happens is creditors directly try to approach these customers. For example, if as in Miss Amira's question, it is mentioned that they have a customer based in UK who is not paying. So in such situation, what happens is the approach is always from, say for example, if you're directly trying to contact them from UAE, the impact that it can create is less. But once they know that once you start involving a collection firm or your partner who is based in UK, then the impact is different, because then they get the feeling that, okay, now they have reached here. So that kind of creates an urgency in settling the debt. So it is very important to have an agency or a third party that has widespread reach in different countries. So even if they move to different countries, your debt can be still secured.
Fine, and it is very much important, and it is quite obvious, very much important in a way that to have a local partner. So if I'm an investor today, do I need to have a partner in UAE, KSA, London, Australia, I'm an investor, I'm not a debt collection agency. Or like, shall I ask my team just to outsource different parties? How? Or to deal with one? Because like today, it is a very much sensitive regulations when you deal abroad. There is compliance, there is regulations, there is GDPR. So if I'm an investor today, do I need to have 150 countries or to deal with one with someone knows the risk of dealing with cross-border regulations? What is the risk here?
Exactly. Rather than dealing with 100 different parties, it is always better to have one party who takes care of your debt and who have reach in all these countries, who have affiliations with different partners in different countries, so that that agency or that firm can take care of the debt for you, rather than you having different communication, because it adds a lot of it's a lot of time and efforts that you'll have to put in place. But rather than that, if the third party or the agency that you bring into the picture, if they have the reach, then it definitely works better.
Fine. I would like just to add to Amira that the regulation, when you deal cross-border, you need to know much. So you need to be knowing that he is within GDPR, within international compliance, anti-money laundering, and much, much, much more. So it is important to have a local partner, and it is very much important to know the risk of dealing with a third party cross-border, region to region. Let us have another third question, Mayar, please.
The third question is also from Miss Amira. She asks that, may I request a strategy to buyer acknowledge or sign balance confirmation, as buyers with malintentions are too stubborn and don't cooperate?
Fine. Is Mus'ab still around, because his screen bit freezing? Okay, this is what I thought. His screen controller just to send a notification to Mr. Mus'ab. So, Multazim, the question is quite straightforward. It has between the collection and from the legal side bit. So, what your advice here?
Yes. To answer this question, usually one of the simple strategy, I would say it's very simple, that we use with the debtors once you start discussion is, during the initial communication, when they start asking for discounts, or then when they bring up these cash flow issues, collector as a strategy, preliminary ask them to send an email putting down your request or mentioning whatever financial difficulties that you're facing. So in a way, you take it as an acknowledgement of the debt. So it is very important for collector to use that strategy of bringing the debtor into communication through email rather than everything happening verbally, because verbally usually they give you commitment, then they go off. But once you start putting it in writing, yes, as Ms. Amira asked, at a later stage, if you want to go legal, this is a strong document. So it's a very simple strategy, but
I'm audible now, Mr. Ayman?
You are audible, but we just answer it. So just be around. So Multazim, I believe this is one of the process we keep developing out of the previous experience. So I believe we put within the last development training session, not to collect, but to make it a definite debt. Not to collect, but to get collaterals. Not to collect, but to put solutions. So yes, indeed, the strategy, and this is where the experts would understand how to start, not to pick up the phone, pay this amount. No, make it a definite debt. Resolution for the dispute. Then try to obtain collaterals. Then start the win-win negotiation for all parties. Thank you. Mayar, do we still have the time to take more questions?
Yes, we can have the other two questions.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
The first question is for Mr. Sadiq. Is commenting about using good strategies may open the opportunity of moving the debtor to be creditor, your client, that you will support them on the collection services of their debts. We used to have such examples.
Mr. Siddiq, he is a colleague and a professional and a brother in Saudi Arabia. And he's one of the people we really appreciate their contribution always. Yes, Mr. Sadiq. Of course, nowadays, classic collection will not work. So in one of the regions like Egypt, recently, it went like barter deals to collect or restructuring the debt or sometime do sell and buy through and within the parties. So yes, there is a very much need of an advanced understanding. Sometime the debtor needs help. So he is not, but he is not in cash flow position to do so. But there is a way. He got a product. He can resell to our clients' clients. So yes, there are much restructuring we want, factoring we want, bartering we want. Yes, Mr. Sadiq, always your comments is truly appreciated. We will take one more question, Mayar.
Yes, this is for Mr. David. He's firstly thanks Ayman. Glad to see your footprint and visibility expanding throughout the region. Appreciate the efforts you make in educating the UAE businesses. Just wondering that while collection efforts are important, is there any service you expect to offer to be able in advance be of assistance of the businesses to avoid fraud? Would love to hear of these services if and when offered.
Mr. David, my dear, there is much, and it is case to case, but usually in the world of the credit insurance and export credit agencies, at the time of the default, we find all what you are trying to explain to do. And it is very much smart from you to say how to mitigate in advance. Yes, there is much can be done and should be done, should be considered, but of course not over a few minutes in this webinar. To rephrase, it is a smart question, advanced question. Before we getting the fraud at the time of the dispute, we're talking about how to mitigate. And I can see Mus'ab shaking his head. So we're going to give him 60 seconds to put some advices to our friend, Mr. David.
Yeah, actually, Mr. David, he pressed on the pain. That is actually the pain facing all the investors coming to our regions. They should understand the legal ground of according to their industry. From industry and to industry, it's a bear. But in general, before dealing with any company, you have to understand that type of the company, because it's different from the sole establishment to the LLC to the BSGC to the joint stock company to the free zone company. So if you are working with a credit, Mr. David, my advice to you is to from day one to put a credit policy. And it's not necessary to be 100-page because no salesperson will read 100-page and stuck to it. A simple bullet points. It has to be provided to you before you start dealing with any of your customers to mitigate the maximum risk and to avoid any fraud. It's always advisable to consult with a lawyer before entering to any transaction with anyone because he will give you the best and accurate advice on how to mitigate the maximum risk and to avoid any expected fraud.
Thank you, Mus'ab. And David, let me just put it simpler than ever. It is a historical fight and debates between the sales and marketing and the credit. It will always go in this way in the history of the credit. The sales, they would like to do anything to have the deal and to get their commission. They will not verify much, not all of them, some of them. So I would like to say revising the process, onboarding the process, validating the documentation. This is the best part out of my 27 years experience would allow to have less risk of a fraud at the time of the dispute. There is much, of course, we can say, but the time has a limit and we will allow only one more question. And after that, I'm feeling guilty keeping our delegates for more than an hour and a half sitting in front of the screen. So one more question and we will be closing this great webinar we have today. Yes, please.
Okay, the last question is for Mr. Nishara. He asks, does UAE allow after judgment, property execution, and public auction?
Mr. Musab, will you take this forward, please?
Yes, of course, Mr. Nishara. As I mentioned in the enforcement and with IFSAH platform, the new platform now in Dubai Court, and it will be implemented in all other Emirates very soon. The judge, the execution judge, can check if the debtor or the defaulter, you have a judgment against him, if he has any assets, not only property, any asset registered under his name, which includes the property, because that includes the investigation from the land department, and immediately it will be seized. So he will not have any right to sell it to anyone, and it goes to the auction procedures through the Emirates auction. And after it's sold in auction, you can the Emirates auction will transfer the value of the property to the court treasury in order to cash it and to get the money back.
Thank you very much, Musab. To conclude, there is much in new regulations. The first look at it, it is complicated, but it is not. It is helping very much, but we need to understand these regulations and laws and updates. I believe we're seeing in all our, especially the GCC country, much revolutionary like updates and actually host well the infrastructure for the investment. Our duties today, just to explain those in the arena where we are expert in terms of the credit risk. There is much happening in Saudi Arabia and Oman. Look at how many memorandum of understanding recently been signed by the government of United Arab Emirates and Sultanate Oman as an example, but not limited to those. There is much, and here our promise, our commitment, we will try to take this additions one by one to be specific to more, like in the upcoming editions, we will talk more about the legal side, the cross-border side, the collection side. We will put a zoom in Sultanate of Oman, in Qatar, in Saudi Arabia, in the region where we know how to get in and out and to be helping and contributing well in any investment journey. On behalf of myself and the speakers, we truly appreciate the time and efforts for delegates from all over the globe attending with us today. Thank you very much. Be around, we will shoot a business report about this webinar from our dedicated digital marketing, and we will announce the second version, what region, and it can be, looks to me, Oman, and what type of topics related to the investors and the credit risk. And thank you for the great speakers today, sharing their best practices and experience. A bigger thank you for whoever and behind the scene and the event management of AW Holding arranged for all these beautiful, fantastic arrangements today. Thank you. Stay well. Enjoy the rest of the day, and we will be always there in case we have any contribution or addition value to be added. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Fi amanillah.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.